Hello and welcome to Take This TV, the television book club podcast where each week we record an episode or two and talk about it with our friends in the fandom. It says that that's you. Oh, wow. Hello. Hi. I'm Carmen Askernes and I'm joined by Kimberly Woods. Hello.
Hello, hot potatoes.
We're watching Constellation this season. And today we're talking about episode 3.
Yep, which is called Somewhere in Space Hangs My Heart. The space agencies begin their investigation into the ISS collision. Joe struggles to reconnect with Magnus and Alice.
What an episode.
Woo! Last episode we had some theories about, brother and sister of Henry and Irina. Is that how we say her name is?
Sure.
We're calling her Irene, but I think it's Irina. And yeah, so we kicked this episode off seeing Bud.
Who is not Henry.
Who is not Henry. Who is at a convention on a cruise ship.
Yes. So our friend and director, Andrew, put this together. And the previously on kind of makes it more apparent, too, that Bud and Henry are in two separate locations. But we don't know, are they in the same world coexisting, or are they in parallel universes? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, what is happening?
We don't know.
Alternate universes? I don't know.
Who knows? So Bud is at essentially like Comic-Con on a cruise ship. And Henry is in some kind of lab running tests on his baby, his precious baby.
Mm-hmm. And Henry is determined to see this signal that he got, this double quantum signal, which he saw right when Joe landed back on Earth and when he wanted to test his baby out. And he can't seem to duplicate that again. Like, he can't seem to replicate that. His lab, his other lab companion is like, it's not working, it's not happening, I don't see it. Yeah. What are you talking about? And then he only sees it when he's by himself, and he can't capture it. It's like showing a single thing when he's like trying to capture it on his phone, and he ends up like drawing it.
Yeah. So for whatever the reason, it won't appear on his camera. So he traces it, and then shows it to his lab partner, who still doesn't believe him because she's like, "Well, you just traced this on a piece of paper. That's not evidence." So they're trying to figure out. Well, I guess specifically Henry is trying to figure out how to recreate this.
And she's like, why do you see it and I don't? And he's like, I don't know, maybe the observer effect?
Yeah. I'm not familiar with what that is.
I'm not familiar with that either.
Let us know in the comments. What is the observer effect? We don't know. But that's why Henry thinks that only he is seeing this. And while he's sort of like talking to his lab partner, he's looking out the window, and everybody's kind of at this compound while they're investigating what happened at the space station. And Alice is the kid's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, daughter.
Alice is playing with her friend, Paul's daughter, and they're playing hide and seek, and Alice is running to hide. But Henry notices that there are two Alices outside the window when he's looking. It reminded me of that moment in The Matrix when Keanu sees the black cat go by twice. And they're like, oh, it's a glitch in the Matrix. The agents are coming. And so I think that's the first time we see someone else, like, witness there being two versions of someone.
Mm-hmm. And then, shortly after that, we get Alice herself seeing a version of herself who she mistakes for her buddy, stomping on her.
Yeah, so she's peeking under a truck, so she can't see the whole person, but she sees that they're carrying the rabbit that she gave to her friend, and they throw the rabbit into the puddle and step on it.
Yeah, so she's mad at her friend, but really it was this, like, other version of her. So she's also seeing double.
Yes, doppelgangers galore. Who's really who?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. But we get this crazy conversation between Henry and Alice, where he comes to join her at the playground, and he kind of talks about quantum physics.
He did. I feel like there are a lot of, at least for me, I'm like, there's so many Matrix parallels in here. It reminds me of when Neo's at like the park talking to the Oracle or on the playground or whatever. And so Henry kind of breaks down for Alice and really for us what he's studying. and their quantum theory.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, when he explained it, were you like, ah?
Yes.
Okay.
You're like, okay. You're definitely giving us sort of the theme of this show. So he talks about how things can be in two different states at the same time. And there's also a moment, there's a liminal space where sometimes something doesn't want to decide what state it's in until somebody looks at it and decides. Until somebody sees it.
Just like Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Yes. So he explains this to Alice, and it gives us an idea of sort of like what may be happening with some of the characters that we're seeing.
And I don't know if that is related to the observer effect, but let us know. It might be.
Let us know what you think. We also learned that Joe's mission on the space station was to monitor the effects of long-term space travel on the astronauts, the mental and physical effects, which is really ironic given the situation that she's in. So she tells everyone that she saw a body, a cosmonaut, that hit the space station. But people don't believe her, and she was the only one to see this. There is no evidence of it.
Yeah.
Now, and it's not so much that they are gaslighting her, but we get hints that, like, maybe Joe is in some kind of alternate reality, or that there are elements of things that are happening that only she can see.
Also, she's the only one of all the astronauts who heard an alarm happen before the collision. Nobody else heard it but her.
Yes.
So, yeah, we get a hint of that as well.
Oh my gosh. I like how this show is like, it doesn't over-explain things. It like trusts the audience to be smart and to pick up on little clues.
Yeah, and it keeps it moving, which is great.
The pacing is so good.
Wild.
Yes.
But you're right. So we're also getting these like weird neurological effects that we see in Joe that we're starting to question too and wonder, like, is this from her time in space? Is this from her, when she lost oxygen up there? So she mistakes Paul's wife's name?
Yes, she calls Paul's wife Erica, and I wrote down he's creeping, but maybe Paul's not creeping, and in whatever universe Joe comes from, Paul's wife's name is Erica.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's really cool that like there are these little moments that like that you just kind of will just blow off of like, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. But once you look at the whole picture together, you're like, oh my gosh, that was a clue.
I thought it was funny too. We have this moment when I think Joe's going for an MRI, and we have Alice being like, that doesn't look like Mom. She looks like she's dead.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, is Joe dead in the alternate reality? Like, what Alice is seeing is like this dead person.
That's a good point. I didn't pick up on that. Joe also tries to reconnect with Magnus, and we get the impression that like whatever their relationship was before Joe went to the space station wasn't very good. It was not. It was like sweet and sad at the same time when they were having dinner together. And she like reaches for his hand, and he's like, "Oh, the wine."
Yeah,
I was
like,
oh.
And she like compliments him at some point. He's just like shocked, like, "Wow, that was a compliment."
Yeah,
like, you're just like, "Whoa, this is like ice cold relationship here." I don't know,
starved for affection. Yeah. But they do have a moment where they kiss, and the sparks kind of rekindle for a bit.
Yeah, but again, it's like, is this a different version of Joe, a Joe that loves her husband, who never stopped loving her husband and didn't have an affair or whatever happened with that other guy, Frederick?
Yes. Well, because we get some hints because after they hook up, then Joe's in the bathroom, and she kind of asks Magnus, what's so different about me? And he says that you look at me like you actually like me. And she's really surprised because she's like, "What? I love you. Like, why would you say that?" Yeah. But maybe whatever this reality is, that was not the case. So.
And then we also have Frederick, who's taken aback when he like just casually reaches over and tries to like caress her face after one of the interrogations. Like, it's just, he's used to this. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And that's weird for him. So this version of Joe, he doesn't understand either.
Yeah. It's also like, everybody seems to be like, man, Joe's being really weird, but they're all being very like cautious about bringing it up, which I mean, makes sense because they just all have this traumatic experience on the space station. I'm really glad that we get time with them back on Earth because I thought the whole show would be this one situation on the space station. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we're like, okay, that's over. Let's like figure out what happens next.
Yeah, me too. There's another moment too where she thinks that their car is red.
Yeah.
She's like, what's this car? And Alice and Magnus are like, it's our car. It's always been blue.
Mm-hmm. And she drops the glass because she thinks it would float. So she's still adjusting to being back.
Yeah.
But there are some differences that she is noticing now, or that she is feeling like she didn't notice before. Mm-hmm. And during the hearing, they say that they think Joe is experiencing hypoxia, mm-hmm. where like there might be some memory loss, or because of her experience with lack of oxygen, she may be hallucinating, which also like goes back to what we saw in the first 2 episodes of Joe is potentially an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And it's like, is she experiencing hypoxia? Is she in an alternate universe or reality? Like, what's happening? But thankfully for Joe, like some of the other characters are also having symptoms.
Yeah. I love that the show kind of plays with that too, because we're like, okay, which might be that and which is actually, yeah. I was concerned after the first 2 episodes of like, oh gosh, I hope this isn't all just some big dream sequence and like stuff actually makes sense. Yeah. But thankfully things are starting to kind of fall into place. We also see that Joe and the other astronauts are given these red and yellow pills that we've been seeing Henry and Irina take. So they just introduced that as a part of their new daily regimen now that they're back on Earth.
They give her the pills and she's like, what is this? And they're like, oh, it's just vitamins, B12.
Yeah, folic acid, vitamins.
Don't worry about it.
So now she's taking that. We also see Bud take that as well. So, it's very crazy.
Do you think it's actually vitamins?
No. No.
I don't think so either.
Think so.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so. I want to talk about that moment, too, where Joe falls in the hallway and calls for Magnus. And when, her daughter's running to get Magnus, she sees that wardrobe again.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Oh, my gosh, here we go again. It's the wardrobe with Alice's necklace on it. And we're just like,
why does she keep seeing
happening? What is the deal with this wardrobe?
Maybe it's like a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe situation where like she transported to a new world.
To cross over.
Yeah.
It's entanglement.
Oh, yeah. It's Schrodinger's wardrobe. Yeah. I don't know. It was definitely like, we get the impression that only she is seeing that wardrobe because Magnus comes to pick her up and her and Alice are there. Yeah. They don't react to there being a random wardrobe in the hallway.
Don't. Or the alternate universe version of her has something bad with the wardrobe.
Yeah.
Trauma.
Maybe. We'll find out, I guess.
We'll see. We'll see where the wardrobe comes in.
Oh, man. So Joe is having her moment with Magnus, and they get to spend some time together. And Henry brings Alice home after they have that conversation in the park. Then we get a moment with Henry and Joe together. And he essentially tells her that, like, there's a lot of big powers at play, and it's easy to get caught up in it, but we astronauts got to stick together. Which I thought was cool, but at the same time, it's like, he probably has ulterior motives, right?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, I also think it's funny because this whole time when they're having these investigations and interrogating all the astronauts, Irina is kind of like the head of it and very much trying to dismiss Joe's perspective that it was definitely this cosmonaut, which she looked up a picture of that, the space gear and got up a picture of Irina.
Oh.
So it's like, yep, Irina doesn't want this to be found because that might be her other, duality, doppelganger.
Her sister.
Her sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know, like, if Henry and Irina know about Bud and, other people out there who may be like them. Mm-hmm. But we do see, towards the end of the episode, we cut back to the future, the other universe, wherever, with Joe and Alice in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice stops Joe and it's like, I don't think that there is another me out there. And I don't think that you're my mom. And then, surprisingly, Joe is like, I think you're right. And then Alice is like, what did you do with my mom?
Yeah, where's my mom? And then, like, sirens.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
So, do you think that there's more than one Joe?
I don't know. I mean, the other thing that in this episode that we get is a lot of Bud, and at these conventions, like, he brings up his book, and the guy that he's talking with on one of the panels is like, you have a lot of inconsistencies in your book. You don't even call your dog the right name in your book. There's, like, so many mistakes. It's like somebody told you a story that you weren't even a part of.
That guy's a conspiracy theorist who thinks the moon landing was fake, but
that's true.
He does bring up some points about, like, there being inconsistencies with Bud's story. So it's like, are Bud and Henry working together? Is there, like, some kind of cover-up?
It seems like he's very much aware of Henry because he's, like, in his defense of himself and, like, him saving or trying to save the other two astronauts he was up there with. He said that he fixed it, and when he fixed it, they weren't dead, and then he, like, blacked out, and then they were dead, and he said it was Henry's fault. He was, like, very adamant that it wasn't him, it was Henry. So he seems to be very much aware of this other version of him.
That's true. Unless he's referring to himself in the third person. He must know about
his split, his other self that he can't, like, cope with. The bad deeds.
And then Bud does do a murder. There is a murder that happens. Which I love Breaking Bad, and I love this actor on Breaking Bad. I'm glad that we got a little taste of that.
Yeah,
because
so
I think he's such a great, intimidating presence. But, I mean, also he goes to the table where the conspiracy theorist guy is like with his friends or family or whatever, and he's like, I need you to take a walk with me, and then just walks away.
Yeah.
And so I guess those people were just like, yeah, sure, this guy that you had an argument with publicly like earlier today, why don't you go off alone with him on this cruise ship, and we'll see you later. Yeah.
Have fun, we'll be here.
So anyway, that guy had it coming, but it was really funny that he just decided to go on that stroll.
There's just so much in this episode. One of the other things that was interesting was when they go and visit Paul's grave.
Oh, yes.
And then Joe asked for a moment alone with Paul. And then she actually sees Paul. Oh. And Paul is holding some flowers. And we hear Paul reciting this poem by Edith Södergran, a Swedish-Finnish poet. And that's where we get the episode title. Somewhere in space hangs my heart. From it stream sparks into other intemperate hearts. So that was pretty wild.
That was great.
It's like, is he alive in this other universe, and is Joe dead? Is he visiting her grave instead? And like,
we also saw he's in a similar state to her, where he's like hurt and recovering and walking with a cane. So. Yes, are they sort of, is this like a mirror that they're, or I guess like some kind of window where they can see each other? Yeah, we don't know. It was just for a moment, and only Joe was able to see him, so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, our unreliable narrator said that. I also love the choice of music when we have Henry and Irina, and they're having their intimate, sexy moment. And she says, first we learn that she's apparently dying of cancer.
Oh, yeah.
But then also she's like, pick the music. And he picks a song, and the lyrics are, somewhere there has to be the other half of me. And I just love that.
Great choice of music. And while they're sort of having this moment, we are cutting back and forth between their intimate moment and Bud confronting the conspiracy theorist. And right when Bud commits a murder, Henry sort of sees Irina's like corpse face, the same face that Joe saw in the cosmonaut that burst into the space station. So, oh man, it's all connected.
It's all connected. It's all pretty wild. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it all.
I don't know what's going to happen. I do think that maybe Irina's dying because of the pills and not because or got cancer from the pills. Like, is there some kind of like conspiracy with all of these organizations that were organizing the space station? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But
I'm excited to see what happens in the next episode, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching. Welcome to the club. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Tell us what you thought about this episode. We're on social media at Take This TV on TikTok and Instagram. And remember, it's dangerous to watch TV alone.